Good afternoon. We're going to make this interactive because you have to listen to me, and then when we're done, we get drinks. All right? So if you play along, we'll do this fast. So just a quick show of hands. How many of you were here last year? Wow. That's awesome. Great new group of folks joining the event. Last year, I made the mistake of speaking at 8 o'clock in the morning. And 8 o'clock in Vegas, bad idea, right? Because everybody was out till 2 in the morning. And I'm not sure this is a great speaking slot either because you guys are waiting to get to the bar. Before I dive into this, and Sky, you did a great job outlining what IBM's going to do and how we work together. My presentation is much about partnering with the ecosystem. Okay, so I'm going to build off some of the themes you heard from Sky. Before we do that, though, just a quick video of some of the things that we're working on here at AT&T. Maybe, hopefully.
Every day, ordinary objects are becoming extraordinary. And AT&T is helping to make that possible. In a world full of connected devices, we're building solutions in nearly every industry. From everyday objects to specialized industrial equipment, we provide the platforms that developers need to rapidly create prototypes and finished solutions. In the auto industry, we're working with manufacturers to deliver a car more connected than ever, providing on-the-go entertainment, enhancing diagnostics, and improving safety. In transportation, we're enabling companies to monitor precious cargo for security, quality, and on-time delivery, increasing efficiency and productivity. And in healthcare, patients can monitor their conditions and transmit data in real time to their doctors, helping to improve the speed of diagnosis and care. Connecting more devices to the Internet of Things than any other provider in North America, and with a global network that reaches over 200 countries and territories, we're helping companies to reach their market faster and tap into the power of the Internet of Things.
You know, what I love about that video is it's not forward-thinking. Everything in that video is real. There are real enterprise customers behind that as well as consumers. So we can get back to the deck here. Everything from connected vehicles to large container cargo vessels moving around the world, all the way over to your personal side. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of industry stats on what's going on in IoT. I think many of you know that. But one of the interesting things to look at is the growth trajectory that we're on. If you look at that light blue line, you can see it took about 10 years for the laptop industry to hit 1 billion devices. Smartphones, the darker blue, 4 years. Depending on who you talk to today, we believe that there are 6 billion devices already connected to the internet. And depending on the analyst of choice, somewhere between 30 and 50 billion by 2020. Now, the majority of those will not be cellular enabled. We have a lot of new technologies that will be introduced between here and 2020. You have wired, you have Wi-Fi, you have low power networks that are starting to emerge. You have satellite connectivity, but it's a big, big market. And what I'd argue is this isn't, again, forward-looking. There are companies today that are taking advantage of IoT, and I want to walk you through some of that. A quick show of hands, though. How many of you today have a connected vehicle? How many of you believe your next car will be connected? In fact, you would actually delay a buying purchase for the right type of connectivity. A few more. This is a very interesting stat. 72% of the folks that were surveyed said they would actually delay a buying decision because they wanted connectivity in their vehicle. And we at AT&T are already starting to see that trajectory change. We report out to Wall Street every quarter on how we're doing relative to machines or IoT devices on the network. About 3 weeks ago, during our Q2 earnings, we announced over 1 million vehicles, connected vehicles, added to the network in Q2. So it's starting to transform not only your personal life, but I'll walk you through the enterprise side as well. Sky had actually the same stat, so not that we conspired, but what we're seeing right now when we talk to enterprise customers, about 61% of those customers have started the journey on IoT. Now, what's interesting here If I back up 3 or 4 years ago, in many ways it was a director level, manager level within the business who was starting to think through IoT. And then it turned into the CIO, CTO. Today, many of these conversations are with the chief strategy officer, chief marketing officer. I would tell you there was a stretch earlier this year of about 8 weeks that over 60% of the meetings I was in, the CEO was actually in those meetings. And it's because many customers are realizing if they don't start the journey now, they may wake up in a couple of years and realize they've lost their competitive edge. Developers. How many of you are developers in the room right now? Not as many as I thought. Granted, if you look at the stats right now, almost 70% of the developers surveyed are already developing IoT applications or intend to develop and deliver solutions. So the train is starting to move in a very solid way. Again, if I back up, and AT&T has been in the cellular business of connecting machines for well over a dozen years. If I back up 10 or 12 years ago, much of this was purely around device connectivity and transport. Most of it was regionally done in the United States, some looking at a national footprint. We built our business on the backs of 2 real industries. The first was the U.S. alarm industry. And if you think back 10 or 12 years ago, many of you had a home alarm. There was a wire going to your home. The alarm industry came to us and they said, we need cellular connectivity to be good as wired connectivity, as backup, in case the bad guys clip the wire. About 5 or 6 years later, the alarm industry came to us and they said, we're noticing a trend. Kids getting out of college don't get home phones. Cellular has to be better or as good as the wired connectivity. And so it forced us to re-engineer our platforms, our processes. And I can tell you now, I just looked at it earlier today, we have 3 large alarm companies that are all managing today well over 1 million assets each, okay? And that's because of the investments that we made a number of years ago. If you look at this trend, though, okay, moving beyond connected devices, it actually speaks very well to what Sky's seeing as well at IBM. This has really changed to how do I transform a business or an industry. About 2 weeks ago, we were in a customer meeting with a very large enterprise customer, Fortune 20. We walk into the room, and this is just a peek into how the thinking in the enterprise has evolved over the last number of years. All C-level executives. And what they explained to us was they intend to bring to market an IoT solution that could equate to millions of devices over the next 5 to 10 years. And we got into a conversation of partner selection and working with the ecosystem. And they said, listen, we've already selected Company A to work with us around building the business plan and re-engineering our own internal operations. And the point was, and very keenly did they understand this, many of the IoT solutions that we put out stall because companies haven't thought through the process re-engineering phase. Okay, how do you get one business unit to actually talk to the other? And how do you scale it? So that was one company. The next company they brought in was going to focus on machine learning, predictive intelligence, and analytics. The third company they brought in was a deep industry vertical expert. And the comment was, this one company has forgot more about this industry than the rest of you consortium partners will ever know, and so they'll be at the table. And then AT&T, we want you to focus in on connectivity across cellular, Wi-Fi. We want to think about this low power concept that's coming out. We need help with security, back to Sky's point, okay? And we need to do it in a scalable model, not only domestically, but we think that this will operate in about 190 countries around the globe, okay? The reason I tell you that story is because if I backed up 2 years ago, first of all, you wouldn't have had a room of CIOs, or C-level executives, I should say. I don't think you would have had the depth of understanding around how the partner selection would happen and the roles and responsibilities of those partners. And so, again, it gives you a peek inside of how this industry is starting to transform. One of the industries that we will... Hello. All right, I broke it. There we go. One of the industry segments or sectors that you're going to see a lot of focus from AT&T around is the concept of smarter cities. I want to start with lighting for just a minute. Seems like a pretty simple concept. You see a lot of cities right now starting to test LED lighting. Okay, the basic use case is I move to something more energy efficient. I probably don't have to roll a truck out to change the light bulb. In fact, in a 10-year span, in theory, a LED light should be able to last, versus an incandescent that lasts 2 to 3 years. So you just saved arguably 2 truck rolls out to that light pole. But now if I drop cellular connectivity into that pole, and I think about a digital sign, an emergency call box, a seismic sensor, a water sensor, you can start to transform that simple light pole. In fact, I remember meeting with one of the chief marketing officers of one of the largest lighting companies in the world, and she said, for 100 and something years we built lights. It wasn't that sexy. Now we're talking about transforming our business, and I'm not sure, quite frankly, what type of business we're going to be in 3 to 5 years. Okay? Look at traffic. I mentioned the 1 million vehicles that came on our network in Q2. Is there a conversation about a connected traffic cloud, where those cars are sending data in the aggregate that can then be shared with city managers around real traffic flow and analytics around that? Metering, whether it's electric or water metering. Retail. What you may not know is that there are actually sensors in this building right now that counted you as you walked around Caesar's Palace. Why is that? They start to look at traffic flow. What if we took those same sensors and we put it out on a city street? And we started to actually count the number of people, bicycles, trucks, cars, vehicles. Think about city planning. Think about right now if you were a retailer and you were going into Dallas, Texas, and you wanted to build a restaurant. In the old days, someone in real estate would say, we expect X amount of vehicles to pass these 2 intersections at any given point in a day. With real sensor technology, I know exactly how many vehicles, at what time of day, and the type of vehicles or people, right? You get into a very different way of looking at where you do site selection. And then security. We talk about video surveillance. A lot of that will come back over the network. We're working with a very interesting company out of California right now, 90 cities they have relationships with, and it's all around gunshot detection. So here's the analogy. Sensors are put in a rough part of town, perhaps. Somebody shoots a gun. Within 60 seconds, they know the caliber of the gun. They route that information to law enforcement. Now, you think about a law enforcement officer now showing up to the scene with that much more information. Oh, by the way, if there are multiple sensors in that area, they can actually start to predict the trajectory of the bullet, right? Just gives them that much more information for law enforcement. So those are some very quick examples of the things that we're starting to see in smarter cities. But let me take you back to water for just a minute. So here in Las Vegas, in fact, in cooperation with IBM and a company called Mueller, AT&T worked on a project in Vegas, Los Angeles, and Atlanta to look at water leak detection. And again, may not be the sexiest thing in the world, but you think about the aging infrastructure in America, especially in the Northeast, where pipes might have been deployed 30 to 80 years ago. You think about a very simple leak in a pipe that could equate to 400,000 gallons of wasted water. With some very simple technology, we now have the ability to not only monitor it, but to alert it so people can start to take action against that. And you think about digging up a city street and getting it wrong, right, because you actually were off a little bit where the water leak actually is. These technologies give pinpoint accuracy below the ground. So some very cool stuff going on in that area. Moving away from smarter cities, we're doing a lot in asset management and cargo tracking in particular. You saw the cargo ship in that video, toward the very end of that video. That's a customer of ours that's based in Europe. It's one of the largest global shipping companies. And every day, they ship refrigerated cargo. It operates in about 140 countries, and what we do for them is not only provide connectivity, that's our base job, if you will, but we actually play the role of a systems integrator, where we provide a turnkey solution to them for the hardware, the software, and the professional services for them to monitor that cargo. And we're talking about refrigerated fruit, seafood, So here's the use case study. You have a seafood farmer in Thailand moving shrimp to Chicago, Illinois. That seafood is out on the ocean for a few days. It hits the port of Los Angeles. It goes from a cargo ship to a train to a truck, all the way up to Chicago. This company now has visibility into temperature, humidity, obviously the location, something that we call seal control to see if someone actually tampered with a cargo. It's insight that they've never had before. We've taken that model, and now we're starting to work in air cargo. What I want you to think about in air cargo is that there are a number of things, high-value assets that are shipped each and every day that have to be temperature controlled. They get outside of that range, you could have spoilage or you could have compliance issues. We launched a product, AT&T branded hardware and software called CargoView. And it's a pretty simple concept. The device is a little bit bigger than this remote. It's battery powered. It can be out in the environment, depending on how often you ping it, for about a week and a half. And it has a number of sensors in it. We're looking at temperature. We're looking at pressure. We're looking at shock. Okay? What's unique about this is I would suspect most of you flew to Vegas this week. And when you got on the airplane, somebody told you to put your phone in airplane mode. What's unique about this device is that as the plane takes off, the device automatically goes into airplane mode. But it's still tracking all the data, temperature, location, etc. As the plane lands, it comes out of airplane mode and starts to send that data anywhere it can connect to a network. Instead of me telling you the story, we actually have a very quick video that I want to run. This is a small business customer of ours. And the reason I think this video is somewhat powerful is because oftentimes we talk about IoT, we talk about the consumer side of our life with a connected car or a wearable. You might very quickly think about things like tracking jet engines or locomotives or rail or freight. But I want you to think about a small business client in this particular example.
I love art. Working with objects is a link from the past to the present. I feel that what we do is a part of it. My company, Racine Burkhow Associates, is a fine art transporter. RBA ships artwork that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I think that our clients' biggest concern is the proper handling and care of their objects. The AT&T CargoView device just adds another layer to our security approach that can be very valuable to our clients. It enables us to actually track the shipment in real time. We can monitor temperature, shock watch, light sensitivity in one fell swoop. Our clients trust us that much more for coming up with an innovative solution that makes us very forward-thinking and technologically savvy.
You know, one of the things she doesn't talk about in that video, we did a pilot with her business, proof of concept, about a year plus ago, and she was shipping artwork from Japan, Tokyo, to New York. And for years and years and years, she would send an employee to point A, right, to accompany the package to point B. And you stop and you have the conversation and you say, well, wait a minute. What if somebody on the tarmac actually damaged the goods in Tokyo? You really wouldn't know that until you got to New York. In fact, when you got to New York, again, you didn't know if it happened in Tokyo or New York or somewhere in the middle. And she thought about it, and her basic response was, that's absolutely true, because the shock sensors now and location, I can actually start to figure out who had custody of the artwork. But what she said was, if I start to feel more comfortable with technology, I'm not going to send an employee to accompany this artwork. And so it's just a very simple way, in her case, again, a small business starts to transform things through the use of technology. So what I want you to take away from that story is it's more than just tracking the things. This is really around the people, the processes, the assets. Sky talked a lot about things that IBM, and there are a lot of other companies that are working together with us around platforms and analytics. But what's important is you have to think about how these piece parts come together, right? The devices, the platforms. Security is clearly the number one thing right now on the minds of the enterprise customers. And so bringing a consortium of companies together is critical. The solutions that I took you through so far, those were brought to market not only by AT&T, but with additional partners. And that's the message I really want to convey today. We need partners. We need a strong ecosystem. And so part of today and the fast pitch that we're going to move into in a few minutes is getting to know you, the ecosystem, so that we can continue to bring solutions to our customer base. And so what are we looking for? When I think about partnering, we start with basic technology. Is there something unique that you have to offer? And perhaps you're looking for someone like AT&T to be a distribution channel for you, maybe in the United States, maybe abroad. Are we re-engineering, or can we re-engineer process for the enterprise? I mentioned before, many of these projects stall because we haven't technically or thoroughly thought through the process re-engineering. We typically get the technology down pretty quickly. But if you're going to scale in mass, if you don't think about process transformation, you missed a major element. And then, of course, the customer experience, right? How do we help customers quickly deploy these solutions in a manner that is truly scalable? And so with that, again, I'm between you and some cold drinks. We are going to move in a few minutes to the AT&T Fast Pitch. Over the last 3 months, we've had approximately 80 companies and developers that have come to us that wanted to be part of this process. If you're not familiar with this, think about Shark Tank. Hopefully many of you are familiar with the Shark Tank show. That's what we're going to do. These companies or developers sent in information to us. We've netted it down to the top 10. And these companies will have a couple of minutes to pitch their wares. You can be the audience. Our judging panel at the end of the day will tally the votes, and actually tomorrow morning we will award one winner a check for $10,000. And then you get to vote on what we call the People's Choice. And so in a couple of days we'll post the other ones, and you have an opportunity to vote on that. And that winner will, too, win some award money. Before I wrap this up, though, and I know there weren't too many that raised their hand that were here last year, but I want to put things in perspective about how to work with a company like AT&T. Last year, at our Fast Pitch, we had a number of companies and developers that came to see us. The winner was 13 years old. Okay? So, when I talk about IoT as, your personal life, when we talk about jet engines and big enterprise, we talk about smart cities, these are big deals, right? But on the developer side, I want you to also think about it's not just big companies like IBM and Oracle and SAP and Microsoft and others that are partnering with AT&T to bring things to market. It's developers of all size. And in this particular case last year, 13 years old, and his use case was to put sensors out in the forest so that from an early detection standpoint, they could start to alert first responders. Okay? Phenomenal concept, unanimous voting by the judging panel. So my point is, we're looking for companies and people and individuals of all sizes, all ages, who have great ideas. And with that, I want to thank you.